Recently, I asked subscribers what they wanted to see, and a lot of people were talking about muting. So in this lesson, I'm going to just freestyle and talk about muting with fingerstyle. Really simple things, but keeping extraneous noise to a minimum. So it's going to be fingerstyle, a little bit of slap, having everything that you play be completely clean and precise, and also a little bit of pick playing as well. I don't have any exercises for this. This is just completely freestyling this, thoughts as I go. So we're going to start with fingerstyle. And when you play, you want to aim for precision. I mean, that's kind of obvious. And it's not just this fretting hand that's involved in muting, it's both. So let me just play something, and as we go, I'll explain what you can do to have a look at the muting side of things. Okay, so first things first. I will often rest my thumb on the pickup like this. I've got a P bass split pickup here. But if ever I'm playing the A, D or G strings, I will rest on the E or sometimes even the A. So just try this. Rest on your pickup if you can. You might not have one here. If not, you can just rest your wrist on this part of the bass and just sort of hang so that you're just where you need to be with your plucking hand fingers, and just play some E's. Let's go 5th fret, 7th fret of the A string. And place your thumb on the E, and that string is now muted. It's not going to be ringing. If I didn't do that, you can come through and maybe hit it. Well, that's another thing, to be precise in your technique. So if I'm playing the A string, just an open A, be careful when you pluck to rest on the string below, which is the E. Okay, it's all about taking care. There's a lot of tiny, fairly boring techniques in terms of muting. We'll explore all of them in this lesson. If your thumb is on the E though, it is muted. Now put your thumb on the A, rest it there, just the fleshy part, and back the thumb onto the E. If you're playing anything on the D and the G strings, the E and the A are now muted. Okay, I'm going to stay there and talk a little bit about the fretting hand, my left hand. Okay, so there, when I stopped playing, I did use the index and middle fingers to stop the strings. There are going to be lots of different situations when you're going to have to use one or another technique, one of these muting techniques, of which there are loads. And at this point, I'm not really thinking too much about them. There might be something I play where I have to think about it a bit more, but if I just do something like this, it's a lot, this hand. So do this. Play E and then stop the note. Now without what I did there, don't do that. Just lightly touch more than one finger against the E and it will stop. If you don't use all 4 fingers, you run into potential harmonic problems like this. If I'm using one finger and I happen to touch at one of these node points, you'll get a harmonic. That's why I think it's good to use more than one finger to mute. This is really boring, but do it. Play an E, stop the note. And it's getting used to this touch and the coordination between the fingers. Let's play some more. Okay, so I was playing D, E, frets 5, 7 of the A string, and then fret 5 of the D string, the G. I'm resting on that E string again, so that's taken care of. No need to worry about that. And I think it's about holding notes. So if I'm playing the E on the 7th fret, even just coming off that note, you can easily make a noise doing that, and a harmonic at that point. So you've got to be careful when you come off a note. Let's explore that a bit further. Right, when I came off the note there, I used the fingers this side of this 3rd finger just to touch the string. That completely deadens it. I would recommend recording yourself if you can and listening back. You'll hear all kinds of things going on that maybe you don't catch in the moment. So playing that E here, it's almost like I'm holding all the strings. Now I don't need to bother muting at all with my plucking hand. All taken care of. And I find that I do this a lot. This kind of thing where my little finger is playing the E, my first finger is just lightly touching the E string, and that same first finger is just backing gently onto the D and the G. And so suddenly everything is muted, apart from the note I want to play. And muting is great for getting ghost notes as well. So using more than one finger, I don't get the harmonic. So you can do anything like this. I'm making this up, you make it up as well, just slower if you like. Just getting used to that touch of play and then come off, and you're just holding the hand there. You might need to experiment a bit with your bass and your string spacing and your hand size, etc. It might be slightly different for you. Let's explore that a little bit further, just using your first finger. Don't worry too much if you get a tiny bit of a harmonic. So what I'm doing here is I'm touching, and this will be relevant later, I'm touching the tip of the first finger up against the underside of the E string, and then doing that, backing the finger onto the D and the G. So now, let's just play 7th fret, 5th fret, 3rd fret, E, D, C on the A string. So there's no E string ringing because it's touching the underside of it. This is the first finger. There's no D and G strings ringing because, again, it's being taken care of. If I don't do any of that, you know, coming off, you get that, okay? Now, I think that happens a lot when people play, when they're beginning anyway. You don't understand why you're getting that sort of sound, but what you'll find a lot of experienced players do is that they won't really leave the string. So if I do the same thing again, you can't really see it, but if I just move here, you might. I'm not leaving the string. You can slide across and you get that slight string noise. That doesn't really matter. But if you do want to come off, you need to be stopping all the strings from doing that. And that's where holding the hand onto the strings is really important. Now, you won't always be playing this way. Another question I got was, can I have a video on, what was it, proper or perfect bass fingering? There's no such thing, really. If you watch great players play, they'll do things like that, using one finger and moving, whereas it's not always strict, you know, one finger per fret. Stuff like that. But if I was playing something like fast like that, then I would need to do one finger per fret. Now, my fingers are not really available to do the techniques that I just showed you before. Let's explore that a little further, actually. This hand, my plucking hand, took up a lot of the slack there. I'm going to slow right down. Right, since I'm not playing the E string, I'm resting on it. That's no problem. Right, here we go. Here's another thing. Sometimes you play for a while and you don't really know what you're doing. I know I'm doing this, but it wasn't really something I was thinking about until just now. So this is E, F sharp, G, fret 7, 9, and 10 of the A string. Let's play that slowly. Okay, now, I haven't left the string at any point there, and that's how I could just come off that last note, 10th fret, G, and also in conjunction with using one of the other fingers here, I can stop the note. Now that's muting, that's stopping it. Now when I go to the D string, it's the same fret numbers, 7, 9, and 10. You can do a couple of things. I can move my thumb from the E to then rest on the A. This all happens without thinking about it. When you have to explain it, it can be a bit odd and awkward. So I hope it doesn't sound too crazy what I'm saying, but... So I'm moving the thumb, or I didn't do that before. I I kind of held the string with my third finger. I probably wouldn't do that very often. I think I would probably either move the thumb to rest on the A, or use another technique which I'll introduce now, which is called the floating thumb technique. So here you have your thumb sort of, pretty much on the side, and it just touches the strings. And so when you move, I'll do this slowly. You do that. You move across. Now this isn't really a real bass line, I'm just playing a scale up and down, just to explore this a bit further. If I was playing that, I probably would do a little bit of floating thumb and then rest on the A. I hope you realise by now there isn't really a wrong or right, there's just does it sound good or not. Okay, and at the end, I can stop the note with the other finger. If I'm plucking with the middle, you stop. My finger's still here. If I come up, I get that. So a lot of it is that touch and control of fingers on the strings. Let's move to some slap. You've got more or less similar techniques, except now this hand is a bit busy. You know, it's up here now, so I can't be muting with it. So that's where this fretting hand has to do a lot of the work, and it's very similar to what I was mentioning before. So here, let's just do this. Let's start fairly simple. I did a lesson recently that was Love Games by Level 42 rip-off. Something like that. So we've got an E slapped, and then that hand with the fingers quite flat, slapping down on the strings. Now you do want to make a sound. That's a left hand pat, and you can interplay between those two techniques. Now if you come to a stop, the fingers have caught all the strings all at the same time, nothing's going to happen, it's muted. You can now get ghost notes if you want, but if I do this, now this is great because frets 5 and 7, the A, B, D, E, G and A on the E, A and D strings, all those notes, those are the ones we're going to use now. So if you want to practice your slap, maybe we'll do the same thing with the pick as well, same notes, let's just use these ones. Okay, so hammer on with a pop on the D string, hammer on with a slap A string. Let me slow that down and you just have a look. I'm definitely not doing anything with this hand in terms of muting. It's these two longer fingers in the middle that aren't currently doing anything. I'm using first and little fingers for the hammer on. Now if you were to use your third, you'd have this finger only. That's one reason why using the little finger I like, but it also lessens the stretch. See, those longer fingers can just touch the strings. Now obviously you don't want them to touch the string as you're playing the notes, otherwise you'll accidentally mute. You don't want that. So slightly curling it, and it's this touch thing I'm talking about. When you practice this over and over again, every day, it gets better. What a surprise. But I can feel this G string being touched by the first finger. That's not going to be a problem in terms of that ringing out. Let's see what would happen if I didn't do any muting. Even if I held the note, all kinds of things are happening, right? Now it's not. I can actually feel all 4 fingers touching the G string, right? That's not how you would normally play. But now I'm deliberately doing that to mute. You have to do quite a lot of things that aren't in the textbooks, really, when you're muting. Okay, I'm going hammer on from D to E, 5th to 7th of the A string, and then just another ghost note, slap, and then 2 pops or pulls on the 5th fret D string. Since I'm using the A and D strings here, again, touching that G string, longer fingers, touching the E string, everything's under control. That's what muting is, it gives you control. Right, now I want you to play octaves. We'll go E, 7th fret, and then you just find the octave, 2 across, 2 down. You've got first finger, little finger. I would use the little finger if you can. Now you can really see that first finger touching, the tip of it touching the underside of the E. Since we're playing the A and the G strings here, we need to mute the E and the D strings. Be great when we all have VR headsets, you can see what I'm seeing, but it's this. I mean, my fingers just aren't, they're not coming off the string. They're just playing a note and then coming off the fretboard, but keeping contact with the string, if that makes sense. The first finger is touching the D string. Maybe even the third finger's catching that as well. I've got that E string. Without that, you can hear there's some stuff going on. Let's move to D, 2 frets lower. At all points, I'm touching this E string and the G string. There will be times where we have to do something like this. Then you might get that. So I might do something like that, where I'm using the bottom of the hand just to touch the E and the A strings that I'm now not playing. You do the Lewis Johnson or Marcus Miller thing, where you put your thumb over the top and you're muting that. The way I'm sitting now and everything, that wouldn't be great for me in hand size, you know. But that might work for you. Don't let anyone tell you that's wrong technique. You know, thumb behind the neck and behind your second finger, that's the correct way to play. They can't be. When you see Marcus Miller, one of the greatest bass players of all time, doing that, same with Lewis Johnson, you can do whatever you like. A little bit of pick playing now. Very similar, where you've got not really too much to be contributed with this hand in terms of muting. You can do palm muting, where you get that fleshy part of your palm and you place it down by the bridge. And that is muting the string, and you get a really cool sound. It changes the sustain of the note. So that's something you can do. You can also use the bottom of the hand to stop, for example, the E string if you're not playing it. But of course, we've always got this hand, and you can do the same techniques as before. You know, first finger, underside of the string. Here I'm just going up a minor pentatonic scale, E, G, A, B. Open string, then 3rd, 5th, 7th. D, E, frets 5 and 7 of the A string. Okay, so when I shifted there, I played a little slide moving from the G to the A. But if you didn't want to do that, you just do the shift and nothing's going to ring out. Then it's that same thing of just keeping fingers in contact with the bass. I bet you there are other techniques I've missed out, but I think I've covered a lot there. The bottom line is you might find your own ways to do things, but you do have to focus on muting. It really is one of these boring but essential techniques that is going to make you sound really good. Talking of sounding really good, this doesn't sound good. My neighbour is always having work and always hammering when I'm doing videos. So I'm going to stop now. But thanks for the question. If you've got any other questions, you want me to cover anything, do let me know. I can always make a lesson up from those questions. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.